Okay, with this video we're going to talk about how to do undestructive things. Now that sounds like a made-up word, but Photoshop really does emphasize this. Undestructive means not to fiddle around with any of the base images. So we've got this image here, and when I first started using any kind of paint product, this goes for things like paint.net, which is free, which is an exceptionally good graphics package. We have this particular scene, and I may want to get rid of the sun and so on. So one of the ways I could do that is I could use this pipette, the color picker, and with that selected, click roughly in the same region. With that selected, the colour has now changed, and if I go to the brush, it's going to be nasty this, but as you can see I've just got rid of the sun. But what I've done is I've actually affected the overall image, the actual base image. So if I drag a bit more just to illustrate this, if you look on the thumbnail now, I have actually done a permanent change to the background image. I've damaged it. It's become destructed. What we want to do is we want to make this much easier in regards that whatever I put on I can easily get rid of, and this is where layers come in. But before we get there, what I want to do is I want to be able to select certain areas and then make sure I don't do anything destructive to them. So what I want to do here is I want to say fiddle around with this sun and get rid of it. Now the best way of doing this is first of all creating a new layer. So over on the right hand side in your palette menu we have this little icon down the bottom here, which is create a new layer. So I'm going to just click on that, and there we go, I've got my layer appearing on the top. Now I now can do just about anything on this layer. So if I draw like that, there we go. Right, horrible amount of mess. What you'll find is, can you see over on the palette menu, you've only put this on the layer. If you go back to the background image, clicking once won't do anything. You've got to click on these little eyeballs. So if I just turn off layer 1, you can see I've not actually damaged the base image whatsoever, and this is the safest way of working. So I'm going to now just delete this layer, clicking on it and then clicking on the trash can at the bottom, and yes I do. I'm going to create the layer again, but this time do something a little bit more snazzy. Now the first thing to do really is to zoom in. Keyboard shortcut wise, this is the best way of doing it. Control and plus and minus will allow you to zoom in. So now all you've got to do is just now position yourself where you need to be. So there we go, there's the sun. And so what I want to do now is I want to get rid of it, and several different ways of approaching this. I could use the pipette tool, the eyedropper tool, and select a colour adjacent to it which I want, which will then change the colour of my brush. And then because I am still, it's very important to point out, I'm still in layer 1, when I drag now I'm only changing that, but that's great. Okay, I've put that blob on and I can turn it off again, which means I've not done anything destructive, but that's not great. That's not what I want at all, because it's just a mess. So we need to be a bit cleverer, and to do this we now need to use some of the other tools like the clone stamp tool. We'll talk about that in another video in a lot more depth, but very quickly what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the brush size a bit bigger, and then I'm going to select an area about here, and holding the Alt key and clicking will give me the target area, and then when I move my mouse over you can see it sort of gives you a preview of what's going to happen. I'm just going to drag roughly from there and acrosswards, and I may have to do it a couple of times just to blend it in nicely, and let go, and there you go. So if I zoom out now, where's the sun? It's not there. If I just click on the visual option, the eyeball, it's back again. So with the layer, that's an undestructive transformation that we've done on the image. But as a result, you cannot save this image now as a JPEG, as the title says at the top. The reason being is JPEGs cannot support multiple layers. So what generally happens is when you go to the file menu and choose save, what will happen is it will immediately bring up your save as dialog box, which is really in your face here. I'll just make that a bit smaller. And as you can see, the default format is PSD. You can save it into any other format that you want, JPEG as well, but what that will do is it will flatten the image, which means get rid of those layers. I do not want any flattening to occur whatsoever, so I'm just going to leave it as this PSD format, and I'm going to give it a bit more of a meaningful name, no sun. and I'll just put it into my Photoshop practice folder and save. So just click on OK to maximize compatibility so it'll work on other file formats or the other applications, and there we are. So with it saved, we've now done a minor transformation. But let's do something a little bit more crazy. Let's do something a lot more severe. So I'm just going to go to the view menu and say fit on screen, so I get the whole image. Let's say I want to get rid of these particular people here. So I'm going to create another layer, and that one will now sit on top of the other one. So it's a pretty good idea with your layers to rename them. So double clicking on the text, I'm going to just type in no sun, so I know what that is, and this is no camels. So how do we do that now? Again, I'm going to use the clone stamp, but this time be a little bit more severe. I'm not going to be perfect with this because we really haven't got the time, but I'm going to select this part of the sky, holding down the Alt key and clicking, and then dragging across. I'm now getting rid of those, and bit by bit I can really do some damage, and as a result, keep going. You have to keep letting go of the mouse button, by the way. The reason being is if I just drag here and go across, eventually it picks up the camel again, and all it does is just moves the camel over, which is a good technique if you wanted just to reposition critters, but I don't want to do that at all, so I'm going to just be a little bit more careful with my selecting, and as a result, there we go. A little bit of work needs to be done over here. And for that I'm going to have to zoom in a bit because I'm going to have to fiddle around with the pyramid itself and change the size of the brush to something slightly smaller. Alt key again, click on another part of the image which we know is roughly the right colour, and as a result, using the Alt key again, clicking, we can by and large get rid of things. Now, okay, great, it's not perfect, don't expect it to be, but as you can see, no more camel. But again, it's non-destructive because I can just turn off the layer and there they are again. So using layers is very, very good because it allows you to, in effect, undo mass changes that you have performed on the system. It's very, very important. So I'll give you an idea of one that I've done earlier, which is non-destructive. I'll just open it now. I went to Warwick Castle about 3 years ago, and what I did was I went up to one of the top towers over the battlements and took a photograph. And unfortunately what I found was, although it looked beautiful in regards to countryside, there was quite a bit of stuff in regards tennis courts and industrial complexes, so I wanted to get rid of them. Again, this is not perfect. I think you can probably clearly see where I've changed things, but I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see better. So specifically here, this open field is actually a tennis court, and over on the right hand side I have lots of different layers going on, and if I go down, there's my layer called remove tennis court. So if I just choose the eyeball to turn it off, that's what was really there. But with a little bit of work, you can start fiddling around and getting rid of things you don't want. Devil's obviously in the detail, so I've done this very, very quickly. If you used your cloning tools and so forth with a smaller brush, you could probably get a better effect, much better than myself. But as you can see, that gets rid of that option. Also, something which is a bit more difficult to tell is down here. It's great, it looks like an empty street, but in reality that's not the case at all. There was cars down there, so one of the options I've got further down here is to remove the cars, which is this layer. If I just turn that off, watch what happens. I've suddenly got cars. This image was stitched together as well, so there was multiple images. I'll show you that on a separate video, but basically that's overlaying several pictures on top of each other to get a larger image. But there's the cars. I didn't want the cars, so what I did is I created a layer and used the clone stamp tool. So using layers is very, very powerful, and it makes a very good use of your time, and it makes life so much easier. So on the next video we're going to start talking about how we can manipulate layers to our will. So ultimately we're going to have quite a nice looking composition where several layers are going to blend in on top of each other. So thanks for watching this one. Hope you watch the next.